Now, almost 2,000 species of plant have been discovered in the past year. That's according to the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew's annual assessment. They include plants that are crops, medicines or timber. However, scientists say many of our most precious plants are at risk of extinction, as Helen Briggs now reports.
Into the forest in search of new plants. Anything rare that hasn't been seen before is taken back to Kew to be nurtured and studied. From tiny water lilies to strange carnivorous plants.
Plants underpin all aspects of human well-being, from the air we breathe, to the food we eat, to the medicines, to the fuels. All aspects of our life on Earth, we rely upon plants. So that's why we really have to take plant extinctions extremely serious. And we're not. We still tend to put plants into the looks nice in the garden category. We need to be thinking about plants as being a fundamental part of what we are. They are the natural capital of life on Earth for us humans.
Almost 2,000 species of plant have been discovered in the past year alone, including crops, herbs and spices. Here at Kew are many of the world's most precious plants, some as endangered as the white rhino, others maybe new medicines or new crops. Scientists say we've got a better picture now than ever before the value of the world's plants, and we have a duty to protect them. About 20% of the world's plants are at risk of extinction. The race is on to stop some being lost for good. Helen Briggs, BBC News.
Well, I'm delighted to say Helen is here in the studio to tell us more. It's absolutely fascinating, this study. Tell me a little more about it and how they actually did it.
Well, from Kew they go out around the world and they collect plants with the help of governments around the world, and they bring them back to their nurseries at Kew and they grow them up. And sometimes they don't really know what they've got until the things flower, and then they can classify them, all sorts of new and amazing things. This has been going on for centuries, really, plant hunters, and it's amazing that we're still discovering things. So Kew put together a report of all the things that we've discovered recently. Still new plants being discovered, but of course they are vulnerable.
Plant hunters, I love that phrase. Now 2,000, I mean that's such a large number and a big range. So let me take you through a few, or you take me through a few, which is the edible stuff. First of all, what do they find?
Yes, well, I mean, this reads like a menu or shopping list really. So a new coffee plant from Madagascar. It's got these really amazing large coffee beans that could give us new flavours of coffee perhaps. Tea bush from South Africa, that's the red bush or rooibos tea. New sugar, a new parsnip from Turkey, would you believe, all sorts of herbs and spices, and perhaps one of the most exciting, the manioc plant that gives us cassava. So 11 new species of that, and that's of course important because it's a real food staple in parts of the world.
Yes, absolute staple. And medicines as well?
Medicines as well. In fact, they categorised how many medicines we have from plants, or 28,000 plants give us medicines. That's mainly herbal medicines. Still some new plants being discovered there, a type of climbing vine that helps in Parkinson's, and aloe vera, which is used a lot in the cosmetics and pharmaceutical industry.
And aside from all of that, flowers, just more species that they've stumbled across.
Yes, so you might think there's a lot of begonias in the world, but 29 new species that, again, could give us new flowers, new scents, that kind of thing, and lots of beautiful, really beautiful, rare orchids as well.
And I said there in the introduction, I mean, so many of these newly discovered, but I thought the line that jumped out to me was some of them newly discovered, but at risk already.
That's right. And it's really sad. They go out, they find these things, and sometimes only a few plants left. So really there's very little that you can do to protect them. So they're saying much more needs to be done. About 20% of plant species are at risk of extinction. So it relies really on knowledge, drawing up protected areas for plants. But there is some good news because they have managed to save some that have gone to the brink of extinction.
And briefly and finally, how often do they do it? So how will they be able to gauge if what needs to be done to protect these species is done? When will the next one be?
Well, there's local efforts, for example, an orchid that lost the moth that pollinates it. So they knew that, and they were able to actually then do the pollination themselves, set up projects locally and save this orchid. So very much depends on the individual plant, where it is, and how it lives in its habitat.
All right, Helen, thanks so much for taking us through all of that. We're back with plenty more in the next few minutes. I want to tell you the latest developments out of Washington, because it's being reported by US media that US President Donald Trump's former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn will not honour the Senate Intelligence Committee's subpoena seeking documents. Senator Richard Burr talking to reporters. We'll have plenty more on that when we return. See you in a moment.